morning, everyone. Local dignitaries, our fantastic staff, and other friends and guests, I'd like to give you a very warm welcome to our Elton site for INSERC. And I would like you all, please, to give a very warm welcome to our Prime Minister, our Chancellor, and our Secretary of State. We at INSERC are very proud of our company purpose. Great people, great place, great future, and it's at the core of all our daily actions. As many of you know, we're part of a Spanish company called Vidrala. We're a market leader in the glass manufacturing sector, and we're a key player globally. We hold a 70% market share in bottle filling in the UK, and 1 in 3 bottles that are manufactured in the UK are made by us. The government and INSERC are both mission-driven, and here at INSERC, our mission ZE30 aligns perfectly with the government's mission. Our mission has 3 pillars. We want to decarbonise. We are deeply committed to decarbonisation, and our aim is to be the most sustainable company of our kind in the world. We want to be a great place to work. We employ 2,000 people across all our sites, and half of them are based here in Elton. We want our people to be happy and proud to work for INSERC. We want to prosper. We want to grow our business for the good of all our stakeholders, including the communities in which we operate. We welcome today's announcement, which shows a bold commitment from government to renewable energy, carbon capture, and particularly hydrogen. Prime Minister, Chancellor, Secretary of State, INSERC stand ready to play our part in a greener, cleaner, more prosperous future for every corner of the UK. So without further ado, I will now pass things over to the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero, Mr. Ed Miliband.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to INSERC for hosting us here today, and thank you to all of our private sector partners for joining us. You know, friends, this is a historic week for Britain's energy system. On Monday, 142 years of coal-fired electricity generation came to an end at Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station as it closed for the last time. And I want to pay tribute today to the generations of coal workers at Ratcliffe and elsewhere who powered our country for more than a century. We owe them a huge debt. But if Monday was the end of an era, today, with this government's decisions, a new era begins. Carbon capture and storage, a new industry, a new generation of good jobs in our industrial heartland, a new route to economic prosperity and energy security. This announcement today has been more than a decade in the making. But believe it or not, when I was much younger and less grey, I launched the first carbon capture competition as Secretary of State for Energy in 2009. Under the last government, there were fits and starts, there was dither and delay. Today, just 3 months since the general election, we turn promise into reality. We have agreed commercial terms with private sector partners, many of whom are here today, and confirmed the government's financial commitment. 5 CCUS projects for 2 clusters, HyNet and East Coast, funding the transport and storage network. The highway for carbon capture and storage in the future. And also at Teesside, the world's largest gas with CCUS plant. And here in the northwest, Protos, a new CCS energy from waste facility, and EETH, the world's cleanest, largest blue hydrogen plant in the world, just 2 miles from here, which will power the furnaces at this glass factory. This is indeed, as Keir promised 3 years ago, the sound of the future arriving. Now, experts from the International Energy Agency to the Climate Change Committee are clear. Deploying carbon capture at scale is critical to meeting our climate commitments. And for Britain, the North Sea means we have the chance to lead. The capacity to store 200 years of our carbon emissions. But let's be honest about this. Too often in the past, Britain has blown its chance of industrial success. we say today, not this time. This government is committed to use every lever to win for Britain. This government is committed to a proper industrial policy. And this government has a Chancellor who understands the importance of public and private investment to build the future Britain deserves. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce my friend, our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you also to Sean and all of you for having us here today. It's great to be here to announce the £21.7 billion for two groundbreaking projects in Teesside and in Merseyside, which will be the beginning of a new chapter in our British industrial history, a chapter that we are making together. The HyNet and East Coast CCUS clusters will secure our leadership in clean technology, just as we led on powering the last industrial revolution. But carbon capture technology is not just about cleaning up our industry and our energy sector. It is a massive opportunity to attract investment and create thousands of skilled jobs paying good wages, the basis for a new era of prosperity in our industrial heartlands. And it shows that this government's growth mission will reach every corner of Great Britain. Today's announcement is about delivering on the goal for people here in Merseyside, but also in Teesside. The HyNet cluster will not only generate 2,000 jobs in future-facing industries, but will also drive broader economic growth across the region for all of you, for your children and your grandchildren. As we embrace change, we're not just turning the page on old industries, we're writing a new chapter of innovation and resilience, and we're doing that together. We've launched Great British Energy, a new public energy company that invests in clean energy, and we've announced the creation of a new national wealth fund, which will unlock more private investment across our economy. We're removing the barriers that stop investment so that we can get Britain building again. And our first International Investment Summit will take place in just 10 days' time to bring new investment, more opportunities to the UK. That's the change that this government is offering, change that will shape Britain's industrial future, change that the Prime Minister is bringing to our communities here in Merseyside, but right across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you to all of you for coming and being here. I think you may have thought you were going to see Kylie, but you got Keir instead, I'm afraid. But I do want to say a big thank you to you, because we've come here to get a proper sense of the work that you do. We've come here to hear about how successful you are. This is an incredible place to work. The amount of work that you do from here is phenomenal. This company has grown and grown, and that's down to you and the skills that you bring to what you do day in, day out. And for me, there's no substitute for coming to places where you and others work and getting a sense for myself of what you do, how skilled it is, and how important it is to our country. I've said many times, my dad was a tool maker, he worked in a factory, but that matters to me because until I went off to college, I didn't even know any working environment other than a factory. So it is really, really important for me to be here today and to say thank you for being here, thank you for listening to us, but thank you hugely for what you do, because it's really, really important. Thank you for hosting us here today. Really good to see representatives from BP here, Equinor and ENI, who have all worked so hard on this moment of partnership, and that's what it is, because this investment in our future we make together, and that is back to you. In other words, this investment, yes, it's a technical question of facing the future, yes, it's about how we ensure that we get what we need as we go forward, the investment into our country. But above all else, It's about making sure that there were thousands of people like you with skilled, good, secure jobs that give you the security and the dignity and the pride in the work that you do. So yes, there's a lot of technicality in all of this. Yes, there's some numbers flying around, hugely important. But in the end, what matters to me and to us as a government is what a difference it makes to your lives and the lives of other people who are doing jobs like you, not just now and next year, but into the future, and making sure that we have you and them in our mind's eye when we make our decisions, because politics is about who are you thinking about when you're making your decisions. And that's why this is such a hugely exciting moment in the future of British industry, because as Ed has already pointed out, it is a landmark week in our national story, because this week we saw the end of coal. The end of coal, the power that built this country for many years. And now, as we see the end of coal, we see the new future on our horizon with carbon capture and storage. The largest programme in this new and vital industry anywhere in the world. That is incredible. Right here in Liverpool Bay and on the east coast in Teesside. 4,000 skilled jobs for working people. Jobs similar to the jobs you're doing. Skills. And because we're stabilising our economy, and because we do this in partnership with the private sector, and because we're fixing the foundations and providing a long-term industrial strategy, a new direction, certainty and stability, and the promise of so much more, because tied up in this in the future is 50,000 jobs across the country in the wider supply chain. That's what's at stake with this investment today. Billions of long-term private investment unlocked, investment in hydrogen, the first industrial-scale plant in the country, and for our energy-intensive industries like glass-making here, or cement, or steel, or ceramics, you're familiar with these, the security that the future belongs to them, that the necessary mission of decarbonisation does not mean deindustrialisation. Now look, this, if you like, is the politics of national renewal in action. We've been talking about national renewal. What does that look like? How do we face the future? And before I was a politician, I was a lawyer, as you may know, and one of the first cases I did was a challenge to the then Tory government's programme to close the coal mines. And that meant that I worked with families and communities who were going to lose their jobs in a really important industry for them. And I therefore know firsthand what this country lost when we ended coal in that way, because we lost jobs, we lost communities, we lost a way of life, I think we lost dignity, and we also, I think, lost identity, because we are the first industrial nation. That's who we are as a country. It's our story. A source of pride that this country, our country, communities like here in Runcorn, changed the world, and that what is made here matters. You can take that away from people without a plan to replace it, and it's like losing a part of yourself, a missing limb, an open wound, a heart ripped out of the nation. So yes, I know what we lost when we lost coal all those years ago, but I also know how we can rewrite our story in the ink of the future. That same identity, that pride, unlocked for new times. Now, you don't do that with a shrug of the shoulder or by telling an onrushing tide to stop. We saw plenty of that in Birmingham this week. And nor do you do it with false hope, sentiment, by treating industrial communities as some sort of charity case, rather than a source of growth and dynamism to be unlocked. No, what you need is a serious, unsentimental plan, a hard-headed assessment of where this country can win. What is our comparative advantage? And then the determination to roll up your sleeves and invest in the future. And that's what today is all about, with our partners in business. Because as both Ed said and Rachel said, carbon capture is a race that we can win. We have the financial know-how, in London and Edinburgh, world leaders in green finance. We have the geology. The UK continental shelf holds a third of the exploitable carbon storage space in all of Europe. Just think about that. Our geology, a third of everything that we have in Europe. Huge potential for our country, for the jobs of the future. And we have the heritage. In this room, the skills and expertise that have moved and exploited gas at sea for decades. So I'm absolutely confident, mark my words, we can do this, and the timing is right. This is a technology that is now arrived, that is ready with this investment to scale. But it is just the start. I've always believed that clean energy is a golden opportunity for our country, a chance to bring security and hope to working people, relight the fires of renewal in those areas that got hit so hard by deindustrialisation. But I'm not alone in that, and this is important because politicians around the world are saying the same thing in northern France, in eastern Germany, in the Rust Belt of America. Their aspirations are the same as ours. This is a race, a global race to get ahead, and I'm really pleased that we're putting ourselves in a position not just to be in that global race, but to win that global race, and that'll be measured in thousands of jobs for literally decades to come. One of the problems we've got is we've been too slow so far. The previous government stopped and started and started and stopped, and not just on clean energy, across the piece, life sciences, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, the creative industries. They never once put industrial strategy on a stable long-term footing. And as you all know, there's nothing worse for investors than chaos and uncertainty. So today is not just a moment of industrial renewal, it's also a line in the sand. We're going to do things differently. In just under 2 weeks' time, the world's most important companies will arrive here in Britain for our first International Investment Summit. All these companies, global companies, coming here to Britain, and I hope to see some of you there, to have a summit on investment into Britain, into our future, into jobs like yours. But more importantly, I hope we can deepen our partnership, because investment is how we will change the country. We have to be smart. We have to be pragmatic. We have to invest only where we've got a clear and undeniable potential. And make sure, like today, there's a clear case for long-term growth. But above all, we have to invest together. Because you can't bury your head and hide from the future. That's how you go backwards. But what you can do is use the power of government, the strength and skills of a nation, to reshape that future in your interests. And that's what we're doing today with carbon capture and storage. That is the country's heritage, the politics of serious, stable government, the business of change in action. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for what you do. And I want to have the opportunity, if I can, before we leave, to just have a chat with you about the work that you do and understand for myself how you do what you do. But I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to take some questions from the media first. I've got Justin from the BBC first, I think. Justin.
Prime Minister, you talk about igniting a new industrial revolution here in the north of England, but this money and this project isn't new, is it? The Tories announced 20 billion for a scheme that was almost exactly the same as this just a year ago.
Well, the Tories spoke about doing this, but they didn't actually do any of the agreements, and they didn't put the money aside. So that is the big change. And this is the big political divide now between invest or decline. We've had the decline bit for 14 years. We were elected in for change, and the change is investment. So if you look at only the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had £8 billion of investment in Amazon that Rachel announced just 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've had £10 billion from Blackstone, which I announced last week from the US. And then this big investment today which will unlock 50,000 jobs. So it's the difference between the decline that we've had and the investment that we need. That is the new political divide. It's how we take our country forward, and that is why this is so important. You don't get investment just by talking about investment. You get investment by partnering with business, by stabilising the economy, by showing you've got a long-term strategy and having the ambition to take the plan forward, put the money down and invest in the future. And that's why I'm so pleased that we're making this announcement today. It isn't in isolation. Those three I've just listed, and I'm confident that in coming days and weeks we'll have more investment decisions like this. And it should be seen as a piece. In other words, these are not one-offs, they're all part of the strategy of this government to invest. Thank you so much. Tamara, Sky.
Tamara Cohen, Sky News. Prime Minister, you're announcing a big investment today, £22 billion. But for many weeks you've been telling us that there is a £22 billion black hole requiring very painful decisions, some of which we haven't even heard about yet. Do you accept that that gloomy message risks putting off investors? And if I may, the stories about freebies are not going away. Is it time for you to look again at how we fund politics?
Look, on the question of investors, it is absolutely clear that by taking the approach we've taken, which is to stabilise the economy, that is attractive to investors. Anybody who's spoken to an investor in the last 5 or 10 years and asked that investor, what has put you off investing in Britain, will have had the same answer as I've had repeatedly until the election, which is it's the instability, it's the chaos, it's the ever-changing minister behind the desk, there's no long-term strategy, we're not putting our money in. So, yes, we've got to take difficult decisions in the budget in relation to the missing money from the last government, really tough decisions, like, for example, the winter fuel payment. That is to stabilise the economy, because I'm absolutely convinced that only by stabilising the economy can we attract the investment that we need. In relation to your challenge, as it were, that aren't we putting off investment, quite the opposite. There's Amazon putting down 8 billion. There's Blackstone putting down 10 billion. There's the 22 billion going in today, which will unlock billions of private investment as well. And I am confident that in the coming weeks and months I'll be announcing, or Rachel or Ed will be announcing to you, other investments that are coming in. So the proof is in the pudding here, it's coming in. In relation to donations, I'm not sure there's anything I can add to the very many answers I've given in the last week or two. Thank you, Tamara. Catherine from GB News.
Catherine Forster, GB News. Prime Minister, Labour pledged to bring people's energy bills down by £300, but you've taken the winter fuel payment off lots of pensioners. Energy prices have gone up. The green transition is going to be very expensive, isn't it? Aren't energy bills going to go up, in fact, at least in the short term? And also, just on the Chagos Islands, Argentina now saying they want the Falklands back. Can you guarantee that under Labour no other overseas territories of Britain will be signed away? Thank you.
Look, on the question of bills, energy bills, that has been a major problem of the last few years. Talk to any individual who's had their energy bills at home, and I'm sure you feel they've gone up very high. Talk to any business, including the business here, and they will know their energy bill has gone up too high. And yes, that is partly caused by international issues, but it was worse in this country because we didn't stabilise the economy, we didn't invest in renewables years ago. Because with renewable energy, you get lower energy costs for good. Not just for one winter, not, capping for a few months in necessary circumstances, but lower energy bills for good because renewables are cheaper than fossil fuels. That is really important. You get independence and security. By doing renewables here in Britain, you're not relying on the international market. And therefore, even if there are international conflicts that affect the price of energy, we would have our own supply, which is independent. And of course, what you get is the next generation of jobs. And that's why this investment is so important. There is always the challenge of the short term versus the long term. But if you never do the long term decisions, you will always have the short term problems. And that's where we've been stuck for 14 years. This is about making sure we're taking the long term decisions to keep those energy bills down for good for millions of people across the country. In relation to the Chagos Islands, look, the single most important thing was ensuring that we had a secure base but the joint US in particular, UK base, hugely important to the US, hugely important to us. We've now secured that, and that is why you saw such warm words from the US yesterday. Thank you, Catherine. I've got Chloe from the Eye.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chloe Chaplin from the Eye newspaper. I wanted to ask you about the situation in the Middle East. Are you concerned that if things continue to escalate as they are, there is a risk of the UK being dragged into a conflict with Iran? And have our evacuation efforts of British nationals been hampered by Israeli strikes on Lebanon?
Well, let me take it in the reverse order, if I may. Firstly, the evacuation plan has been brought forward, and we are evacuating, as you know, unimpeded, and that is because of the planning that we put into it. And I repeat, importantly, to UK nationals in Lebanon that now is the time to leave, now is the time to take up that evacuation plan. And that is a really important message, obviously an important answer to your question, but an important message to everybody listening who may be in that position. Now is the time to leave. We've got the plans in place. Please come forward and we can make sure that they're evacuated. The most important thing in the Middle East is the need for de-escalation, and that is why I've been talking to the President of the United States, to the President of France, to the German Chancellor, to the G7 countries, and to the Prime Minister in Israel about the need to de-escalate the situation. As you probably know, I spoke to the President of Iran a few weeks ago because I am concerned that this is on the brink, and I am concerned that we do everything we can to de-escalate the situation, and that's been the constant message from this government. Thank you very much. Then I'll go to Richard at The Guardian.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Richard Partington from The Guardian. Climate scientists say that carbon capture and storage relies on unproven technologies and result in huge emissions.
Could you just put the...
Sorry. Climate scientists say that carbon capture relies on unproven technology and result in huge emissions. This investment lasts 25 years. Is it right to lock the UK into fossil fuel assets well into the 2030s and 40s and beyond? And if I may, you've previously expressed support for changing the law on assisted dying. Is your position still the same?
Yeah, let me just, on the question of whether this is right investment, it absolutely is. It's very important in relation to our climate obligations, and that's why those leading the discussions in climate say this is the right thing to do. It is a recognition that when it comes to cement, to glass, to other vital industries, there's an element of carbon that if we're to support those industries going forward, we need to find a way of capturing that and ensuring that through initiatives like this, we can continue with glass production, we can continue with cement production, and therefore this is sort of got a double benefit, if you like. We've got the skills and the jobs and the potential to get ahead on carbon capture. That is a good thing in its own right. But secondly, it supports glass, it supports cement, it supports those industries where there's always going to be an element of carbon, and therefore, it's what I said at the beginning, this is about your jobs and making sure that they're there for the future. So on both those fronts, this is absolutely the right investment to make, and it is the opportunity for the UK to get ahead of the game and to demonstrate to the world and to the country that we're a government of change, that we've turned our back on decline, that the way forward is investment. And that's why I say and repeat, the new political divide, the most important political divide, is between investment and decline, and that's the change that we're bringing about. Thank you. Martina, from The Sun.
Thank you, Sir Keir. Is giving back £6,000 worth of gifts an admission it was a misstep and that you must do better? And would you like to see your cabinet follow your lead and repay the post-election freebies?
No, I mean, look, we're going to draw up some principles so that everyone can see the basis on which donations, etc., can be accepted. We're working on that. Until they're drawn up, I decided to repay so that any future activities of me or anybody else are in accordance with whatever the new principles are. That's my personal decision. I'm not saying others should do the same, but that's why I did what I did. I think, in fairness, I missed the second half of the question on assisted dying, so apologies. Just very quickly on that, I made a promise to Esther Ransom before the election that we would provide time for a debate and a vote on assisted dying, that it would be a free vote, and obviously that opportunity has now arisen, and I'm very pleased that I'm able, as it were, to make good on the promise I made to Esther Ransom. The government will be neutral on this, as you know, but I did make that commitment to a free vote, and I'm sticking to that commitment. And apologies for missing the second half of the question. Emma from The Telegraph.
Morning, Prime Minister.
Morning.
This is the fourth attempt at CCS in the UK. Is there any reason to think this time it will be more successful without permanent taxpayer backing or burdens on business?
Absolutely, and that is why you've seen such support for the investment that we're making today. This is a crucial step forward. As I say, and I really want to make this point, on carbon capture itself, we've got, I've been to see for myself some of the infrastructure that we've got in Scotland, the geology we've got in Scotland. We've got a unique opportunity for carbon capture using literally the same pipes in Scotland, using the same infrastructure where, fossil fuels came down the pipes. Now they'll be used, as it were, in reverse. And, of course, what that means is the skills that we have can be deployed in the same places. Because one of the problems, in my view, when coal ended, was that those communities were not given well-paid, secured, skilled jobs where they lived. They were literally told to get on their bikes. We're never going to do that again. And I want the next generation of jobs to be the jobs where we've got the people with the skills, the know-how, etc. But, and I can't emphasise this enough, it is crucially important for glass, for cement as well, because their future is locked up in this, and it's a very bright future. I think this firm has been around for 26 years and is now remarkably making 1 in 3 bottles in the entire country, which is an incredible statistic. I think 3 billion bottles, something that all of you should be really, really proud of. Thank you so much. And then I've got Liam from the Liverpool Echo. Liam.
Good morning, Prime Minister. This is obviously a big announcement for the people of Merseyside. Could you tell us a little bit more about what it will mean for the economy of the Liverpool City region and people's jobs? And secondly, while we're on the subject of renewable energy, we're talking about carbon capture today. You'll have spoken to Steve Rotherham, I'm sure, about his plans for a barrage in the River Mersey. How realistic do you think that is, and is it something that your government will now get behind?
Let me take those in that order. Firstly, this is really important for the regional economy. It's important for the national economy, in my view, for the reasons I've said several times. But it is important here in the region because these are good, secure, well-paid jobs in the region. And I think that is the foundation of what so many people want in life. People want a job that is secure, that's skilled, that pays them enough to be able to do the things that they want to do. Have their family, buy somewhere, go on holiday, do the things that they want to do, secure in the knowledge that they can afford to do so. And I've always believed that almost the first and most fundamental thing in terms of security for individuals is having the dignity of a good job, a secure job, a well-paid job, which then gives the freedom to do whatever people want to do with the money from that job. So for this region, these jobs are really, really important. There's a secondary benefit as well to Liverpool and Merseyside, which is when people have well-paid jobs and skilled jobs that they're securing, they spend their money predominantly in the local economy. So your restaurants, your hospitality, your theatres, etc., also gain secondary, because if people have got secure jobs and feel that they can go out and enjoy themselves and spend that money in the shops, in the restaurants, etc., that's then a double benefit for the region. More broadly, of course, those jobs will be across the country, and a similar pattern happens. One of the reasons hospitality's taken such a hit is because people haven't got the money to go out for meals in the way that they used to. It's a secondary benefit. In relation to the tidal work that the Mayor is doing. Look, we are supportive of this. I do think it's important. Obviously, it's subject to business cases, etc. But all of this technology should be seen as one, in the sense that we should look at all of the opportunities we have to develop, to create the jobs of the future, and an economy that actually works for everyone. And that's what's at the heart of this. Thank you so much. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.